So there's been a little bit of online Twitter beef between Impact Wrestling, or one half of the Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Champions, Kiera Hogan and Sasha Banks. Now, full disclosure, Sasha Banks is yet to respond to any of this, but Kiera Hogan certainly made some headlines over the course of the weekend or so when she compared her style to Sasha Banks and maybe implied that the SmackDown Women's Champion was ripping off her style. Now, Sasha Banks, of course, right now has a lot of eyeballs on her as the SmackDown Women's Champion. She's doing arguably some of the best work of her career right now, and certainly one of the most featured players on SmackDown, and especially in that SmackDown Women's division. But Kiera Hogan, one half of the Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Champions, mentioned on social media that she thinks that the boss has been possibly ripping off her style. Now, Kiera Hogan sent out a tweet during SmackDown last Friday that accused Banks for ripping off her look. As I mentioned, Kiera Hogan is one half of the Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Champions, but she's obviously taking some exception, easy for me to say, to the boss's style. So she posted a couple of tweets that certainly drew the ire, or certainly drew some interested eyebrow raises from fans online. She said, quote, "I'ma leave this here. Check my fit though. Often imitated, never duplicated, and that's on period. You can't do it like me, boo. Hashtag hottest flame." She also said, quote, "If you want to come and get it though, make sure you want it for I give it though, and that's on period poo." So, I mean, there you go. But it certainly got a lot of people discussing. And basically, she posted a couple of GIFs online whereby Sasha Banks was wearing very similar attire to her, very similar attire, and obviously they both have the dyed blue hair as well. So because of this, there was some pushback, if you will, from people online that called Kiera Hogan out, saying that Sasha Banks had done it, that the look first, and she was being insecure, all that kind of stuff. So fans flooded Kiera Hogan's mentioned after she posted those tweets aimed at Sasha Banks. The replies didn't seem to bother Hogan though one bit. The Impact Wrestling Knockout replied back with a laughing animated gif and a caption saying, "Insecure, you got me." Now, a little while later, Hogan addressed those haters coming at her. She noticed that a lot of them didn't even have profile photos of themselves. This caused her to suggest that those fans stay true to themselves and stop worrying about her. She said, quote, "Your profile pictures aren't even pictures of you. Out of here, big mad. Be true to you, boo, and stop worrying about me." Now, many fans, of course, as I mentioned, weighed in on the subject after Kiera Hogan pointed a finger at Sasha Banks for jacking her style, and certainly a lot of people thought she was being insecure. I don't think it was. I mean, I was really hesitant, to be honest. If I'm being completely transparent here, I was very hesitant to cover it anyway. The way that I looked at it as, I don't think it was anyone ripping off this style. Sasha Banks has had blue hair since 2019 when she returned after SummerSlam. Did Kiera Hogan even have blue hair at that period of time? I don't think so. If she's talking specifically about what Sasha Banks was wearing on SmackDown on Friday, I'm hardly the best judge of who wore that first or anything like that. And in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? I don't think so. I think, without wanting to criticize Kiera Hogan too much, I really don't think Sasha Banks is, watching Impact Wrestling and saying, look at Kiera Hogan going, I need to copy her style. Maybe she is. Maybe Sasha Banks watches Impact Wrestling every Tuesday night on Access TV or on Twitch or on social media, wherever. I mean, it's a very good show. Sasha, if you're watching, I would recommend that you do. It's very, very good. Certainly better than Raw or anything like that. But I really don't think Sasha Banks is taking the time out of her busy schedule if she's not filming The Mandalorian, or she's not doing her variety of WWE appearances or a variety of social media posts or anything like that. I really don't think Sasha Banks is taking that amount of time out of her busy schedule to copy Kiera Hogan's style. I just think maybe it was just a similar outfit, maybe. And again, I don't know if it's like the proximity of Kiera Hogan was wearing a similar outfit on Impact this week and then suddenly Banks wears it on Friday. Maybe someone could look into that. I don't know. I thought it was just, to be honest, you have to look in the industry that we're talking about here. This is pro wrestling, and at the end of the day, regardless of if they should be or not, they're labeled as independent contractors. By that very nature and definition, if you're an independent contractor, you have to sell yourself, and you have to get attention to yourself to get booked and to get a good contract and get attention on yourself. When you have more attention and more eyeballs on you, it benefits your career and your program. So I think in reality, and again, this isn't doesn't come from a place of disrespect to Kiera Hogan or anything like that. I think in reality it was probably just a case of Kiera Hogan going, I'm going to throw this out there. She probably didn't expect it to get that much response, and certainly have a lot of, because there was a ton of social media articles and website articles talking about it. I really don't think I really don't think it's going to be it was going to be a thing that she thought was going to get that much attention, but I think she probably put it out there to get a bit of attention, because as I mentioned, this is pro wrestling. If you've got attention on yourself, if you've got people talking about you, if you've got people looking up your Twitter profile or looking up Impact Wrestling, it's a good thing for Kiera Hogan. That's her character as well. Her character, Fire and Flavor, they are loud and they're outspoken, and they don't really care what they say, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was a variety of things, frankly. I think it was her just putting stuff out there because that's her character. I think it was just stuff to maybe get a bit of attention, get people a bit talking. If you talk about Sasha Banks and SmackDown on Friday, and you get people talking about you, that's quite a big audience or a big fan base on social media that's going to come and check you out. So again, it's marketing, So I didn't think it was anything too serious, and I didn't think it was anything much to be made out of it, to be honest. Again, I was hesitant to even really talk about it because it's not really, in the grand scheme of things, is it big news or anything like that? Probably not. I mean, Sasha Banks hasn't even responded to it, which probably shows you what it is. But it was something maybe worth looking at. What I also did want to talk about in this video was Tommy Dreamer has spoken a little bit about the AEW and Impact Wrestling working relationship, and it's really interesting because if anyone knows about working relationships, the benefits and hazards of them, it would be Tommy Dreamer, right? Because he would know about the working relationship of WWE and ECW back in the late 90s. Now, of course, Impact Wrestling, they've had this working relationship with AEW for a little over 2 months now. Started up in December in the Winter is Coming edition of Dynamite on TNT. Since then, though, we've seen the likes of AEW World Champion Kenny Omega making regular appearances on Impact programming. The Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, have popped up on AEW Dynamite. We've got Private Party and Matt Hardy, AEW stars, regularly appearing on Impact at the moment. We've also had AEW President and CEO Tony Khan appearing in paid advertisements, actually appearing inside the Impact Zone on Impact Wrestling on Access TV2, alongside the likes of Tony Schiavone and Jerry Lynn. So, what did Tommy Dreamer have to say about it? Well, he certainly had some interesting thoughts about it. Now, speaking on Impact Wrestling Press Pass, which is kind of a thing that Impact Wrestling do semi-regularly, where they'll get I've been on them a couple of times. Basically, what they'll do is they'll have a star from Impact, whether that's Tommy Dreamer, Tenille Dashwood, Rich Swann, Eric Young, Don Callis, whoever, and they invite a load of the wrestling websites and journalists on, and you can ask them questions, stuff like that. So Tommy Dreamer was the most recent guest on Press Pass, and Tommy Dreamer revealed that he was mostly in the dark when it comes to this plans of a crossover between the two promotions, and doesn't really know that much that's going on right now with it. He said, quote, when Tony Khan showed up a couple of weeks ago, first Jerry Lynn walked in, and I know Jerry Lynn lives in Tennessee, and I was like, hey man, what's going on? And he said, oh hi, I was just coming by to say hello. Later on, all of a sudden, Tony Khan came in 2 hours later, then I see them and they're on television. If it's not my segment, I really don't care about it, and I want to watch it on television. Now, as I mentioned, as a veteran of the industry, Tommy Dreamer has seen numerous pro wrestling partnerships over the years, probably most famously ECW and WWE's working relationship during the Monday Night Wars. While relations between promotions today are overall friendly, the innovator of violence revealed that tensions were boiling over between the ECW and WWE locker rooms. He said, quote, back in the day with ECW, we were told by Paul Heyman that this is the agreement. They're trying to do stuff to go after WCW to try and get those ratings back. And if we're going to try and promote our first pay-per-view, that was the gist of the relationship. None of us knew Paul Heyman was actually getting a paycheck from WWE, which again, some of the stories about Paul Heyman in those late 90s with ECW are horrifying, to say the very least. But he then spoke about, obviously, them showing up in the famous 1997 edition of Monday Night Raw from the Manhattan Center. By the way, one of my favorite episodes of Monday Night Raw ever is the ECW invasion of Raw. So good. So good. And such a precursor to the Attitude Era. Like, ECW was really the Attitude Era before the Attitude Era was a thing. And obviously, I know people like to talk about the timelines and all that sort of stuff, but WWE, at that period of time, they were still doing, red, white, and blue ropes, old school pro wrestling, mid-90s pro wrestling, and just boring, childish stuff. That episode of ECW in the Manhattan Center felt different. It felt really different, and it was unique, and honestly, go and watch it on the network. If you've never seen it before, You'll enjoy it so much. It's such a good show. It's such a good show. But getting back to the AEW and Impact Wrestling relationship, Tommy Dreamer has high hopes for Impact's alliance with AEW. He said, quote, "I think it's a great relationship because you're getting to see dream matches. Kenny Omega is the AEW World Champion. He shows up on Impact. It was a great tag team match last night on AEW. You had wrestlers from AEW Impact Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling on the same show, and NWA, by the way." He said, "How awesome is that? The possibilities are endless for booking, for matchups, anywhere you want to go, and that's great for who? Pro wrestling fans and the business." Now, I absolutely agree. Of course I do agree, because we've been speaking about it ad nauseum here on the channel ever since this AEW and Impact Wrestling relationship became a thing back in December, and I'll mention it again. I'll say it over and over again, because I say it every time we talk about the Impact Wrestling and AEW working relationship. It's the tip of the iceberg. We haven't seen the best of it yet. The best is yet to come, because I do think we're getting Kenny Omega competing for the Impact World Championship. I do think we're getting Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann. I do think we might even get Kenny Omega versus Moose. In the best case scenario, I think, actually, is we know that Kenny Omega is probably going to be competing at Impact Rebellion. Of course, we don't have anything confirmed yet, but the Omega symbol's on the Impact Rebellion poster, so we're getting Kenny Omega at Impact Rebellion. I think the best case scenario is we see Kenny Omega, Rich Swann, Moose, triple threat match, Impact Rebellion, Impact World Championship, AEW World Championship, and TNA World Heavyweight Championship. A lot of people have been saying the way going forward when it comes to this Impact and TNA World Heavyweight Championship storyline when it comes to Rich Swann and Moose is that we'll get a unification match, winner takes all. What about upping it? What about upping the stakes and levels of winner take all for 3 world championships? Kenny Omega's called himself a collector. He's called himself a collector of world championships, the same way that he was a collector of comic books when he was a kid. Imagine collecting 3 championships in one night. The AEW World Championship, the Impact World Championship, and the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. What a visual, what an event that would be. It would arguably be one of Impact's biggest pay-per-views in a long, long time. I would think it would do some of Impact's best business they've done in a long, long time. It would make that pay-per-view event must-see. It really, really would. And it would just, I think Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann would be a big match anyway. World Champion versus World Champion. Whether or not they put the belts on the line, that would be one thing. But adding another guy like Moose, adding another championship, I think more importantly, it just raises the levels. It just raises the levels, doesn't it? And it would just be so much fun. I think it would be so much fun to watch. Whether or not it will happen, I don't know. It's not a report or anything like that. That's just me fantasy booking. But like Tommy Dreamer said on Press Pass, that's the amazing thing right now when it comes to all of this, is that we're diving into rounds we didn't think were possible previously. We're going into matches and situations and storylines that we really didn't think were possible before. We're going into stuff that as a pro wrestling fan you say, oh, that's impossible. You're not going to get an AEW mixing with Impact Wrestling. It's just not possible. Anything's possible now. Anything's possible. And now you got to feature in there's other companies getting involved. As I mentioned, there's the NWA involved. And people might say, well, what the NWA got to offer? Well, they've got to offer a Thunder Rosa, a Nick Aldis. I don't even know who's still under contract, frankly. But those two definitely are. Those possibilities are really interesting. Really interesting. Add them back into it. I know Nick Aldis, he obviously has history of Impact Wrestling. He's a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion as Magnus. So there's lots of different ways to come at this. And on top of that, you've got New Japan being involved. And think of the possibilities there. So when it comes to Impact just being involved in this whole deal with AEW, it feels like AEW are kind of, I know they're in business with the NWA, but they've sort of reformed the NWA to go up against WWE. You've got WWE as its standalone entity, but now you've got AEW who have kind of brought back the territory system. They've got, obviously, the big territory, which is AEW, but you've got Impact, you've got NWA, and Power is returning soon to YouTube. You've got New Japan as well. You've got AAA as part of their deal. So there's all of these territories popping up that are all in alliance together. And that really does, when borders are opened up like that and walls are broken down, it leads to some really exciting possibilities. And we've spoken about it at length here on the channel when it comes to Impact Wrestling, whether that's Chris Jericho appearing on an episode of Impact, Jon Moxley, the list and possibilities really are endless. And as I mentioned before, I think it's only the beginning. I really do think there's way, way more to come when it comes to this Impact and AEW relationship. And I think as the year goes on, we're going to see that. So very excited. Interested to see what Tommy Dreamer said. And interesting when it comes to that Kiera Hogan and Sasha Banks story as well. But of course, as always, This is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on some of the stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really just help us out here on YouTube. Go with the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.